Our next speaker is Jana Dixon. So Jana comes to us from South Australia. She's a part of the WeedSmart team and has been since 2021, when she single-handedly, with a group of helpers, organised the Clare conference in the midst of COVID. So being from South Australia, she brings a speciality in ryegrass and other high rainfall zone weeds. So I'll just pick up on James Madden's comment early in the day about South Australia being to blame about some of these practices. Also note that New South Wales leads the leaderboard with glyphosate-resistant ryegrass and glyphosate-resistant southeast. So don't throw too many stones, James. Welcome, Jana. She's going to give a bit of an overview in terms of, I guess, ryegrass management and the WeedSmart Big Six Strategies, in terms of some of the integrated programs that we can use in the weed sense. It was really interesting to see ryegrass with that survey we did at the start of the day. That just totally blew our minds. We were sort of thinking it will be pathology-related queries and diseases, but yeah, ryegrass was front and centre of a lot of your thinking coming along today. So welcome, Jana, to go through some of the WeedSmart Big Six.
Thank you, Greg, and thanks for the disclaimer about being a South Aussie. Proud, and I go for Port Adelaide, in case anyone's wondering, not Crows. So yeah, it's great to be talking here. Thanks for the invite to talk here at the Crop Protection Forum. Well done for organising such a great conference, and obviously great to get together and talk about resistance issues in not just weeds for once, actually hear about pests and diseases. And just like the other speakers today, I'm passionate talking about my topic, weeds, and I do like to think that it's more than just reaching for solutions that come out of a chemical drum. So definitely looking at it from an integrated approach, and definitely with WeedSmart talking about the on-farm management tactics, very much sort of a ground-up approach. We really like talking to farmers and doing extension that goes both ways, from researchers and from growers as well. So just a little bit about WeedSmart. So we're all about communicating and extending practical weed management solutions. We're an industry voice, and we focus on delivering science-backed solutions and practical messages for growers and industry. We've got a number of financial partners, GRDC being a main one, and a range of chemical companies, machinery companies, and a number of in-kind partners as well. And we do focus on, I guess, the main aim being around minimising crop weeds and sustaining herbicide use. So we do talk a lot about the Big Six, which I'm going to step through, and we use that as a bit of a framework for delivering some of our messages. So yeah, just a big shout out to our partners. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without you guys. So this is the Big Six framework that we like to think about when talking about weeds, and what tools we can use on our properties, and what, as consultants, what we can be using. So just stepping through, I guess there's no particular order, but rotating crops and pastures for diversity, mix and rotate herbicides, crop competition, double knockdown, stopping weed seed set, harvest weed seed control, and there's a number of what we like to call WeedSmart wisdom. So a number of tools that aren't exactly come within the Big Six, but things like resistance testing, managing fence lines, and a number of other strategies like that, which come under the Big Six. If you go on the website, there's heaps of information about all these tools. So I definitely recommend that you go have a look at those. So sort of just getting into it, I thought I'd just start here. So weed management's a bit of a journey, and I like to think about what goal we're trying to achieve at the end of the day. And for us, really, less weeds, more profit, and being able to call the shots and not letting weeds call the shots. So not letting weeds impact our decisions as such, but we know in this audience that ryegrass is probably came out as the number one issue that we're facing at the moment. So we know that we are being influenced by weeds. So that's the goal, what we like to move towards. But we know it's not always straight line. We're trying to move towards the goal, but it's not a straight line, and it does come in ebbs and flows and how close we get to achieving it. So obviously farms, a lot of things happen, seasons happen, which is going to influence how close we get to achieving this goal. If we think about the blue line being ryegrass numbers and how we might be managing them, some years we're doing an awesome job, we move towards it quicker. Some years we might see blowouts, and as long as we're sort of got our attitude moving towards the end goal and dealing with those blowouts as we can is going to be the best we can do. So the big six, I sort of put them around how we're achieving our goal, and there are a number of tools that we like to think about and how we might use them to move closer to the end goal. So what I'm sort of expecting the current situation is, so if we think about this year, it's been a challenging year for farming in general, weed management in general, and it was discussed at that the panel earlier today. So probably in this part of the world and other parts of the world as well, there's been consecutive wet years with high weed seed set, trafficability and timeliness issues, waterlogging, drainage, pH, sodicity issues that might lead to poor crop competition, harvest weed seed control challenges and potentially disadoption as well, delayed harvesting, glyphosate resistance, increasing in annual ryegrass, tighter rotations that might be profit focused, unattractive hay and grain legume options, and prolonged periods of weed germination and pre-emergence running out of legs, which are all sort of add up to get us in the situation that we are in at the moment. So that can lead to I guess compromises, so farming system and weed management compromises that come from those, and some of those can't be helped. So acknowledging that, and I guess looking forward, we're probably expecting significant weed seed carryover into 2023 and beyond. And what we're thinking with that, potentially high seed dormancy from ryegrass setting seed in a wet spring year, high stubble loads, moving into a reset phase as well in a number of situations. So I guess this is going to influence our strategy and approach, and I like to think, what can we do at the moment looking forward? So I like to think about stacking tools, coming at ryegrass and weed problems from multiple options, ranking paddocks and prioritising, and planning long term. So I guess ranking paddocks is pretty important, understanding where your bad ones are and where you really got to put the pressure down on weed management. I think it was discussed earlier in the panel, potentially from Rowan, who was saying, some really bad blowout paddocks. We're not going to be happy with 90% control next year. It's going to have to be 99% control on those paddocks. So really ranking which ones are going to be the problem ones and which ones might not be. Planning in the long term. So don't just think next year, think a 3-5 year sort of rotation on what you're going to be doing in these paddocks. And obviously stacking tools. We sometimes think, I guess rotation's number one lever that we can pull, but think about the big six plus other strategies. What are we going to be doing next year and in future years to manage some of these weed seeds that we'll be getting through this year? So think of it as a bit of a framework and how you can stack multiple tools. Don't just aim for 80%, 90%. Each of these tools are going to add up to a small percent, which is going to hopefully get you as close as possible to 100, ranking and prioritising and planning in the long term, and hopefully getting back onto the target of less weeds, more profit, and calling the shots, not letting weeds do that. So I guess my involvement in the high rainfall zone through WeedSmart, I've been down the southeast of South Australia into Victoria, southwest Victoria, and I've been able to be in touch with a number of growers, consultants and researchers, and got some really good insights from that part of the world, because they are dealing with some pretty significant weed issues down there, and I guess a pretty unique sort of growing environment where ryegrass will germinate almost every month of the year, and things are potentially difficult to control with trafficability issues and the likes. But yeah, I mainly do consulting around the mid-north of South Australia, which this year it probably is classified as a high rainfall zone at the moment. So just starting with rotation, just the power of a double and a triple break for ryegrass management. So the team of Adelaide Uni and a number of other grower groups they've got a really awesome publication out managing annual ryegrass in the high rainfall zone. And they did this awesome 9-year trial at Lake Bolac in Victoria, which showed how the ryegrass population fluctuated over a 9-year crop sequence, with a low cost being in the orange, medium cost in the grey, and high cost in the green. So that's obviously pre-emergent and any crop top desiccating herbicides as well, which they ranged from about $39 a hectare to $85 a hectare, being the high cost strategy. And whether the ryegrass numbers plummeted significantly, with faba beans followed by canola as the double break strategy. So obviously the low cost orange strategy shown there had a massive blowout, and it increased significantly over the first 5 or so years, and then the double breaks helped get that paddock or trail back into line. So even the high cost strategy in the green, obviously probably the kitchen sink would have been thrown at those plots, but still over the wheat, barley, canola, wheat part of the rotation, ryegrass numbers still increased, and it wasn't till that double break phase was added in, there was a significant decline. So yeah, just the power of a double and a triple break to get things back into line, coupling that with robust herbicide mixtures, focusing on crop competition and harvest weed seed control has been awesome insights that have come out of the high rainfall zone. It was touched on a little bit earlier, but the power of mixed farming and using pasture phases to reset the seed bank. So particularly in the southwest of Victoria, they are dealing with some significant levels of glyphosate resistance, and going back into a pasture phase has been a pretty valid option for some of these growers and consultants. So using pasture phases, fodder crops to deal with resistant weeds, particularly highly glyphosate resistant populations, and it does provide that opportunity for diversity and risk management, plus the benefits that might come with the pasture species. Obviously with trying to manage two enterprises, it does require strong management and effective implementation to ensure that you are getting a win-win out of both your cropping and livestock. It is there can be compromises trying to do both, but certainly in terms of weeds, a pasture phase can really help things get back into line, and potentially followed by another break crop and those sort of things. So that's been a really good insight. And there's a bit of stuff about that on the WeedSmart website as well, a bit of a case study. Crop competition is just as important in high rainfall zones as it is anywhere else. Work from, again, the University of Adelaide team, Chris Preston as well was involved in this, just showed that in the high rainfall zone you can't put up with more ryegrass just because you're getting high yields. It is critical to do whatever you can to make sure crops are as competitive as possible, because ryegrass will cost just as much. So poor crop competition costs money. I think it was for every 3 ryegrass plants per metre square, there was about a 1% decrease in wheat yield, as a bit of a rule of thumb that came out of that research. And if you think 1% of your wheat yield, if you're getting massive yields, it certainly does add up. So that's why you can afford to spend on some of those robust herbicide strategies, because the cost of ryegrass is still significant in the high rainfall zone. So obviously competitive crops, varieties, soil amelioration and drainage work in particular has been a big game changer in those parts of the world. Anywhere that's poor drainage, waterlogging, might need gypsum. Anywhere that the crop's struggling, the ryegrass certainly blows out. And so that's been a big highlight from that district. Having a good nutrition focus after a wet year. We know narrow row spacing has multiple benefits for crop competition, yield, and also harvest weed seed control, with that plant architecture of the weeds standing up in the canopy on narrow rows. And something as simple as increasing sowing rate and having robust target plant populations. From the same trial that came out of Lake Bolac, it just showed across low, medium, high herbicide strategies, just by increasing seeding rate, you're getting a notable difference in ryegrass seed set per metre square. So all these 1%ers are going to add up, especially if you're dealing with big ryegrass or any weed population, and crop competition is key in any system. On pre-emergent mixtures, mix and rotate in general. I guess we encourage as much as possible, start by testing. It's not just resistance testing, it's testing for susceptibility. So you want to know what's going to work because you're spending a lot of money on pre-emergent. So being diligent and testing and using that information a few years out in advance is really useful. And again, this sort of just shows some work that was done in the high rainfall zone, how much using mixtures and how critical that is. So it would be pretty rare not to be using mixtures anymore in terms of pre-emergence, and focusing on things that are going to provide that residual control and having legs into the season when the ryegrass is germinating later in the crop phase. So yeah, this is included in some of that research in the booklet of managing ryegrass in the high rainfall zone. But the best strategy, secure a pre-box of gold post all the way back to Treflan on its own, which we know is slightly weaker and less residual. So robust mixtures are critical. Aggressive strategies will pay off, potentially when you're dealing with really high numbers. Mixing and rotating, we've heard this a lot today, and it still rings true for herbicides. And planting across a rotation, we've got a number of pre-emergent chemicals now that can be used across multiple crop types. So that's why planning those 3-5 year rotations is really important, and plan out your herbicide use as well. And stacking tools, robust pre-emergent, early sowing, crop competition, crop topping, and harvest weed seed control. It adds a range of tools that all add up, and we know that early sowing and using robust pre-emergence is critical for improved weed control of ryegrass. This was mentioned a little bit today, but the double knock, double paraquat, triple knock, all strategies that have been increasing in the high rainfall zone more out of necessity more than anything. They're dealing with some significant glyphosate resistance in that part of the world. And a typical double knock, obviously, paraquat, following a glyphosate application. The first steps to optimise glyphosate, do whatever you can to get that part of the step working as best as possible: water rates, nozzles, reputable brands, water conditioners, adjuvants, and those sort of things. And then following up with the paraquat, potentially Group G, Group 14, and a pre-emergent. So Roberto had some really awesome insights about the benefit of pre-emergence going in with the paraquat or the second knock. So I think watch this space. There's going to be some awesome insights that come in out of that stuff. The double paraquat's been increasing in these hard to kill populations. So again, more out of necessity, and it's not necessarily just for autumn knockdowns. It's all through summer, and for any hard to kill summer weeds, and potentially another knockdown, a double knock, and adding in that incorporation if you've got lime to incorporate and those sort of things. Just adding that mechanical disturbance as well, potentially for hard to kill summer weeds. And harvest weed seed control in the high rainfall zone, particularly where I've been working with WeedSmart, it's been slow adoption, but it's been increasing. So I did some harvester forums about a month ago down at Millicent, South Australia, Hamilton, Inverleigh, Keith, and was really pleasantly surprised that the amount of adoption of some of the mills and different strategies for managing weed seeds at harvest. We know it all comes with challenges, particularly in wetter environments with big crops, but there is people having a go, which has been awesome, and some great success stories of windrow canola, beans, barley that's windrowed using impact mills and with narrow row spacing, so a few disc systems getting around as well. And people that are using it strategically with looking at early maturing wheat, having a crack at windrowing wheat as well, and people just trying different things. And obviously there's still problems with green material and compromises on capacity, but yeah, it was really promising to hear what they're doing down there. And lastly, just touching on the farming systems research that's been done in this part of the world, John Kierkegaard and his team, and you've probably heard of the project, and I really encourage you to go look at some of the insights that come from it. But using diverse rotations for weeds and profit, I'm actually really jealous of some of this research that's done in this area. I wish we had some back in our part of the world, but just showing the value of a double break, aggressive management strategy, and the trial that's been done over multiple sites, multiple years, and the focus was looking at turning rainfall into profit whilst managing risk. And the key take-homes, John presented at a farming system focus group that we did on the Lower Eyre Peninsula, and if anyone knows that part of the world, they're similar to here. They're dealing with rotations that are wheat canola, and they're really trying to break things fairly well. So we ran a focus group down there, and John presented some of this research, and the response from that was awesome. So we know double breaks are effective at reducing ryegrass. A single break's effective combined with aggressive management. Continuous wheat or wheat canola rotations, aggressive control in terms of herbicides can be effective but expensive, and 1 year of conservative management can result in blowouts. So just a message around diversity is key, and the benefits of adding a legume into a rotation. And there was some pretty good insights around profitability over a number of years, risk management, and then some of the flow-on benefits in terms of legacy effects of nitrogen and water in those systems. So I do encourage you to look into that as much as you can. And just think strategically, and we do need to think long-term. Test for resistance when you can, and diversity plus the 1%ers are going to be key. So double and triple breaks, aggressive, mix and rotate pre-emergent strategies, and stack it with as many tools as you can: crop competition, seed set, harvest weed seed control. And we can't afford not to have good crop competition, and we can't afford not to do a double knock as well. So that sort of rounds out the big six and a few strategies to think about. And we do have a few resources. We've got a survey. If anyone hasn't done the WeedSmart survey, I'd love you to get your phones out and check out the last QR code. It's just to get some insights around the WeedSmart project and the value it's provided to the industry. Yep. And then just one more slide is a quick plug for WeedSmart Week next year at Dubbo. Start of August. This year we ran an awesome event at Mildura. It was really well received, and people are going to travel far and wide to get to Dubbo next year, so I'd put it in your calendar now if I was you.
All right, thanks Jana, that was fantastic.